So it's true. I've spent over a year in the old agency space, and in that time, I've signed on a bunch of clients running appointment setting agencies. So I've actually helped a bunch of people get a lot of clients. And over this time, I have, learned a lot of things, fell into a lot of pits. So I just wanted to make a video documenting my 12-month, 1 year experience and absolutely everything that I learned. So hopefully you can have faster growth than I did. And that'll be this video. The first lesson that I learned running my own agency was the whole paradox of just not starting one, right? I came into the agency world from the typical self-improvement. So I was watching Hamza, I was watching all these people, I was trying to do all these habits, tracking my habits, doing all these things. But when it came to actually taking action on something that I knew would change my life and I knew would make an impact that would leave lasting changes and I would never be the same again, I just never wanted to start. I would write down and I'd note take on videos. I would join free communities. I'd think about buying courses, but I just wouldn't ever pull the trigger. And this phase lasted for about 2 weeks before, honestly, I had to look at myself in the mirror and just think, why are you even running an agency? Why are you even trying to? Right? Because if you're not going to start, if you're not going to take action, this whole research phase that you're in right now, or if you're in it right now, doesn't really equate too much. Most of the things you're going to learn are on the job. That makes sense, and you should only be going for the specialty knowledge once you've actually came to a need for it. So if you want to learn Facebook outreach, get to a point where you need to go on Facebook outreach and all these things. And that is one of the biggest lessons I've learned. And there's a bunch of things that are going to stop you from starting when you're first getting into it, like an LLC. You don't need an LLC. You don't need to set up your go high level automations. You don't need to be a Facebook ads expert because you're not going to be one. And I wish I knew all these things because it was 2 weeks that honestly, if I knew about all these things sooner, I would have saved and I would have been 2 weeks further along in my journey. The second lesson I learned was in relation to fear, and it was fear about sales, particularly for me, because I was pretty good at booking appointments. In the program that I bought, which I'll touch on a little bit later, I was always sharing that I booked appointments, booked appointments, booked appointments, but on these actual sales calls, I'd hope that people never even showed up. The reason why people, or I hope people never showed up, was just because I was a very socially introverted person, or at least it's what I thought. But I thought that it's just that way, that's who I am, and it's never going to change. But what I didn't know is that it's just that I wasn't in that situation enough times. And through being in that situation over and over and over and over again, you learn to actually be socially comfortable, be able to speak, be able to express your thoughts, because we're all thinking. Just some people choose to voice those to the world and some don't. And that is the only real difference between someone who's quote unquote introverted and extroverted. And if I knew that ahead of time, it would have saved me a lot of pain because I used to think, there's no way I'm going to be able to do a business because I can't communicate with other people. And this fear crippled me, right? There are these hidden insecurities that I had or have some still to this day. And I think they honestly just slow your progress down if you're not willing to address them and find the root cause of why that fear actually exists. If you can conquer that fear, you can put yourself in a situation where you're against that fear and you're fighting against that fear and you're in a situation where you're uncomfortable, you are going to slowly break down that fear. And all the time it's not as bad as you think, right? It's a negative perception built on the actual concept of ignorance, of just not knowing what's going to happen. I wasn't actually scared of speaking, right? I'm pretty all right at speaking. It's kind of what I do now. But the big issue was that I just hadn't spoken enough. And through not speaking enough, I thought speaking was something I couldn't do. So in reality, a lot of the fears you might have might honestly not be true perceptions. And if there's a fear that's stopping you right now, maybe it's that you can't learn ads, maybe it's you can't book appointments, whatever it is, I want you to put yourself in that situation and see if that's really true. Try it. See if that fear is really true and if you are really that person that you think you are, because chances are fear is going to be crippling you. And I hope it was a big lesson. The third lesson that I learned was in relation to education, and it was partially because I spent my whole life in the public school system and I was taught that, whenever you learn something, it has to be attached to a result. And because I carried this belief that everything I learn has to have a direct result connected to it, when I got into the SMMA world and wanted to start buying courses, wanted to start buying paid information, it really destroyed how much I actually took out of it. If I had known that education is meant for the sake of learning and it's meant for the sake of improving what you have in your brain so that you can make the connections, you can draw the conclusions, and therefore help you with your already existing goals, I would have been a lot further ahead. Because the issue that I had particularly was about me, and let me silence this phone really quickly. It was about me buying these courses, and I thought there would be an immediate result attached to it. I would buy a course, I would spend the stories I spent $2,000 what I'd spent 10 months washing dishes on the weekend to make, which I thought was a lot to me. It was 10 months worth of time. It wasn't the actual amount of money that it was the amount of time. Spent all of that on a course. And because I didn't immediately get results, I wrote it off as a scam. And if I had really just taken that course and saw this education and putting things in my brain in relation to wanting to get an agency, wanting to get clients, I would have learned and I would have made so much more money in that period of time. And that happened down the road. And I kept buying these things and I would keep, quote unquote, losing money just because I didn't understand how to use the information. And using information could be the core of this lesson. You have everything you need on YouTube, ChatGPT, whatever it might be. There's billionaires talking. You can consume that information. You can use it as education to actually go forward and push forward to your goals. And that was a big lesson I learned, because if I knew that when I first started, I would have been a sponge for all these things that I consumed. But instead, I was very selective about it and only attached what had immediate results to it as good. The fourth lesson that I learned was about mentors and about questions, because a mentor, I've had 2 mentors so far in my 12 months-ish, 13-month-ish experience, and both of them have been so big for me. Honestly, if I did not have mentors, I would not be where I am today. And, actually getting in contact with these mentors, learning from them, working alongside them was one of the best things that I ever did. There's a very specific strategy that I talk about in actually how I got into contact with them. And it all comes down to being able to ask good questions. Whenever I ask somebody a question, I would always bring potential solutions to that question. I'd say, hey, just giving an example, what do you want to eat for dinner? Do you want tacos, pizza, chicken, or rice, or whatever? And because of that, they had the options ahead of time to say, hey, I want pizza. Boom. And that's the one we go with. And asking people questions like that, I could extract so much knowledge, so much information, which actually continued, down the line into them liking me, them trusting me. And whenever I could spot an opportunity to work with them, to help them in any sort of way, I was the first person they'd call on. And through doing that over and over and over again, I got access to a lot of opportunities that 10x, 100x, 1000x my growth. And if I hadn't actually, just taken the initiative to invest in these people, to learn about them, to ask them good questions about themselves and about me and what they think I should do, I would not be where I am today. So if you want to take this as a lesson, you want to attach it somewhere, you want to find a mentor. And the best way to find a mentor, I have a video on it where I'll break down exactly how you can do so. But the best way to find a mentor is just by being genuinely looking for help and genuinely providing value to these people in a way that you can find. Fifth, and the final lesson that I want to discuss in this video, is just about enjoying the process, right? I am young. Chances are you watching this are also young, whether you are 40 or whether you are, 18, whatever age you are, you're still young. You're still going to live for a lot longer, and you have more than enough time to achieve what you want to achieve at your goals right now. And, just through learning that, through ultimately understanding that I can extend my time horizon on things and I don't need to see success in 2 months or the world's going to end, that has broadened me a lot of flow with my work, right? It no longer becomes this dying urgency that I used to have when I first started, where I would be an emotional roller coaster of ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. Felt like the world was ending, or I was on top of the world. Now I'm kind of in this flow where it's consistently at a very high level. I'm consistently enjoying what I do, even if there are problems that come up, even if there's things that go wrong, even if there's things that go right, and I'm absolutely killing it. It's roughly that same baseline, little spikes and little drops, but ultimately I stay around the same. And adding that to my life has broadened a very big sense of just fun, right? I enjoy it. And that was all the biggest lessons I learned. If, you are starting an SMA, even if, you're similar experience or way more experienced than me, I don't know who watches these videos. I hope that you found some value. I hope maybe you related to some of the lessons that I've learned. And if you haven't, you can maybe take what I've said and apply it to your own life to benefit in some way. But I appreciate you watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.